discuss. This is where you come in. You take to chapter 14. The very first two verses you probably know by heart. Man that is born of a woman is a few days and full of trouble. And when do we usually hear those terms, those words? Few days, full of trouble, difficulty in life. A lot of times we hear it at a funeral, because what are our days? How long we live, are they few? Yes, and I think they get faster the older you get. It seems that way. Probably we have more responsibilities, we have more worries and all that sort of thing, but it escalates to the point that, hey, where did the year go by? We're already at a season where I thought was just yesterday. But it's not. It's almost been a year, hasn't it? And so those things happen in our lives, and Job's going through this difficult time. So we want to look at this I've divided into 4 areas of fault where he's despondent. You may pick up little words like that. I don't mean by that. But the idea starts here, that man is born of a woman, so that's all of us. That's man. His life is few, his days are few, and then they're what? While they're few, they're what? Full of happiness. Full of trouble, because he's going through the difficult time. He feels like he's been, God has become I've become an enemy of God, and I'm trying to live right, and it seems like God's treating me like an enemy. Or maybe there is no difference. He'll slay the innocent with the unjust as well. Maybe that's the thought, and we know that's not right either. That he doesn't work that way. But there's this idea of the brevity of our life, and yet, why don't you just leave me alone, God? I want you to get that despondency. I'm insignificant. Why? My days are few, and I'm going through trouble. It's like I'm coming forth like a flower, and what happens? I'm insignificant. Why are you picking me out? He fleeth also as a what? A shadow, and continueth not. Sometimes James says like a mist. But here's Job describing as a flower that's quickly cut down, a shadow by noon, it's over with. All right, we've got another shadow coming in the afternoon. And dost thou open thine eyes upon such a one? You're picking me out like that and bringest me into judgment with thee? Why are you treating me that way, God? Who can bring a clean thing out of an unclean? Not one. If I'm going to stand before you and I'm just cut down quickly like a flower, I'm not going to continue on. But you do. And I can't become clean before you. Even though I'm innocent, I can't compare to you. Seeing the days are determined, see they're few, and they're numbered of his months with thee. So you got the days, the months are numbered, my days are few. You know that, you've determined that. And thou hast appointed his bounds that he cannot pass. Look away from him that he may rest, till he shall accomplish as a hireling his day. A hireling his day. People worked sun up, sun down. They got paid every day. They were day workers. I got my day. It's not very much, God. Let me have some peace. Now that's the despondency. That's what he opens with, that its days are few and they're full of trouble. And he brings it forth. Why are you picking on me? And that's despondency. All right. What do you see next? Let's look at these next verses 7 through 12. How does he open there? There is what? What kind of tree? Okay. What happens to this tree? Apple, fruit? I don't know. That's what happens to this tree? It's cut down. It cuts down to the stump, and what happens? It grows back. That tree can be cut down, and that tree is going to find, its roots are going to be found, they're going to find water, and it's going to come back and blossom again. But what about me? What about me, little old me, Job? Yeah, you're going to put him in the ground, and there's more hope for a tree that's cut down than me. Is that despondency? Well, sure it is. And we can feel what he's going through. It's just the scent of water, verse 9. It will bud and put forth boughs like a plant. But man dieth, is laid low. Yea, a man giveth up the ghost, and where is he? And the waters fail from the sea, and then the other part, the river wasteth and drieth up. So the water comes, and it comes out of the sea, it comes out of the rivers, and it dries up. That's where I am, Job thinks. So man lieth down and riseth not. And here's a phrase, and sometimes I don't think in terms like this, but in Job I do. And we're going to see it again. Till the heavens be no more, they shall not awake. As long as the heavens continue, I will stay in the ground. And sometimes what is he thinking about a resurrection? He's hoping in one. But if the heavens continue, as long as the heavens continue, and there's not a change in that situation, which deals with the things of this earth, I'll remain in the ground. I will not awake, nor be roused out of their sleep. It's when the heavens are no more, that's when things are going to change for the dead. Is that true with Jesus Christ? In the time, it fits very well. But Job is expressing that. And that's the way he lived. But there's more hope for a sawed down tree than me. He just wished God would let him die. We've seen that before. But I'm here as the heavens continue. I never wake up. And he said, I'm so insignificantly, why did he just leave me alone? No, he brings me to judgment. How can I win against God? So there's the first two. Now, look at verses 13. What does he say here? Oh, that thou wast what? Hide me where? In the grave. Sheol. It's where we find the Hebrew word Sheol, and the verses have that, but it's equivalent to the grave. We'll see that it's equivalent to the Hadean world where departed spirits go after we die. But a lot of times it's the grave. That's why Jehovah's Witness like this. What is Sheol? In some words have the word hell. What is that? Well, that's just a grave. There's nothing after that, but words have their context. And here they denote the grave, but other passages we see that's not the case. There is hell. That's not Sheol. It's not Hades. Oh, that thou wouldest hide me in Sheol, thou wouldest keep me secret until what? Till your wrath passes by me. Just let me have some peace. Let me have some rest. That thou wouldest appoint me a set time and remember me. If a man die, shall he live again? If I knew that, I would do what? All the days of my warfare would I wait till my release should come. And if you would call me at that time, I would answer thee. Thou wouldst have a desire to the work of thy hands. I've been created by you. I honor you. And just give me some peace. Hide me in Sheol for a while. But when you want to call and the judgment comes, I'll be there. Gladly so. But now thou rememberest my steps. Dost thou not watch over my sin? Apparently I have it before you. I don't have that peace of rest. I'm alive. And what did we know what God told Satan? You can touch him, you can touch his flesh, but you cannot do what? You can't kill him. And then what he's pleading for? Just give me some rest. If you want to come and get me a judgment after that, fine. But I'm in pain. It's hurting. But look what this is. My transgression is sealed up in a bag, and thou fastenest up mine iniquity. Now, all of you positive thinking people out there, what that phrase be? He just puts it in a bag and puts it away, and I don't have to worry about my sins. Is that how you're going to interpret that passage? I think he's despondent. I said, no, you put them in a bag, and I can't get rid of them. And you got them. And I'm living, and I'm being saddled with the reality that I must have sinned towards you, and I do not know how, and you're silent. You're silent. That's despondency. And he's putting himself, not comparing himself with others, he's just putting himself right before God and expressing, this is how I'm feeling about things. Of course, he's discussing this with his friends. All right? Then the fourth one in this chapter. If the mountain falling cometh to naught. So what? That's a remarkable statement. So a mountain, you look at the mountains, they're kind of permanent, aren't they? They're kind of strong faces, structures in our world and life upon this earth. But over time, they can so erode, and it's in this picture, he falleth, it comes to naught, and the rock is removed out of its place. What happens to stones? If it crumbles to stones, what happens when water goes over it? Waters wear the stones out. And the overflowings thereof wash away the dust of the earth. So there's not any dust left, it's just a washout situation, and you will outlast me, God. Thou prevailest forever against him, and he passeth. I'm not a mountain. But as you wear out stones and as you take the earth away, you're going to win. And I cannot withstand that. You're eternal, I'm not. Thou changest thou changed his countenance to send him away, and his sons come to honor, and he what? He sends him away, finding to die, changed his countenance, and so forth of what was great. He dies in sadness. And my sons were promoted, and I'm not here to see that. And they that were brought low, but he perceiveth not of them. What happens to my children? What happens to them? I am departed from this earth, and I will not have a part in that. I always thought when I was little that my grandparents were still watching me when they died. That made me be a good little boy, because they could see everything. My parents were limited. They're in the flesh. But I could say, I don't want to disappoint them. And read our Bible and realize we don't have a part in this earth any longer. And Ecclesiastes 9:6, we don't. But have we changed? And that theme, I wanted you to realize that we've seen this. What does verse 22 say? We're just kind of back where we've started. Now we're here in the end of the 14th chapter. What does verse 22 say? But his flesh, what? His flesh upon him hath pain. Is that Job right now? And his soul within him mourns. What progress have we made? Got a lot of questions. I've made some accusations that's not wise from this perspective of Job. But this man is he's very despondent. And I think you and I can understand why. I think we could sympathize with them, and we can sympathize, maybe you don't, you sympathize with his friends. They're looking at it from their standpoint. They needed to realize there could be other options, which we know about now. But it's easy to look at it, and then when he makes the statements that he makes, they're going to get a little bolder about what he is. He's just not right before God, and he's now really blaspheming things, and they get a little stronger with him as well. But there's that point, the last part of our lesson 4, where he is despondent. He's back to where it's always been. I'm suffering in the flesh. I don't know why. I moan in my spirit. I'm grieving in my spirit, trying to understand why God doesn't tell me why. And we're never told that he is told why. And the fact is that sometimes we don't know why. We may know some details of that suffering will take place, but we do not know why me. And we should never question God when it comes to us. Yes, sir.
Back up to verse 17, and it says the first part of that my transgression is sealed in a bag. Makes one to think that he has took them away from himself. In other words, they're away from him. But then the next statement reads that you, meaning God, covering my iniquity. Do you think he had knowledge that his sins would be covered by a future Christ and dying?
No, that's why I asked it. If you're positive thinking, you would, that somehow God is going to take away those sins away from me.
That wouldn't be possible that he would know that.
Well, no, but he kind of knows about a resurrection too, which is always interesting. Where was that ever talked about in the Old Testament? Pharisees would understand that as time went on, and Job really understood that. But as far as knowing that you're going to put my iniquities in, thou hast put them there because you're going to forgive them, I just think he feels you got me trapped and my sins are there, and you're the one that's locked them up against me. That's why I'm suffering. That's the only thing he can think about. He's suffering. He knows it's not the reason for them, but it's apparently I've angered God enough that he just put that, and he hasn't brought me to judgment yet. I wish he would. If he just let me die and then bring me back, there's the idea of maybe a judgment after death. But I don't think he's thinking about Christ or that passage there. I think it's just how despondent. No, but verse 16. But thou wouldst call and I would answer thee. Thou wouldst make desire the work of thy hands. I'm the work of your hands. But I think the contrast is this is negative, which would be I can't get out of it, and you won't tell me what it is. That sort of thing. Okay. All right, in lesson 5, this is chapters 15 through 21. We're going to see Eliphaz begins to answer. We've seen that Job has shown his despondency and so forth, and Eliphaz is going to step in and answer the things, and we'll get into this lesson. And this is the second round of speeches between Eliphaz and we'll have Bildad and so forth. So this is where we begin. So our first question: describe Eliphaz's attitude toward Job as revealed in these first 6 verses. Because it answered Eliphaz the Temanite and said, what is his attitude toward Job? If you want to summarize that, David. Yeah. That's right. And remember chapter 12, 3 and 13, 1, he said, Job said, I'm just as wise as you are. Remember that point? I'm just as wise as you guys are. And so what does Eliphaz say? Should a wise man make answer with vain knowledge? If you think you're so wise, your point about his words, they don't amount to anything. They're vain. But a wise man would fill himself with the east wind that blows it all away. It's vanity. Should he reason with unprofitable talk, or with speeches wherewith he can do no good? Your language is foolish, vain. It's not accomplishing anything. It doesn't make any sense. Yea, thou doest away with fear and hinderest devotion before God. Here's where you're really speaking against the things of God. For thine iniquity teacheth thy mouth. The problem is you're a sinner, and that's your sin is causing you to speak. And how do sinful people speak? I'm condemning myself. No, they have crafty speech. They make excuses. They want you to see another route. And so thou chooseth the tongue of the crafty. Thy iniquity is making you speak. But how do you do that? You talk all this nonsense as the tongue of the crafty too. Thine own mouth condemneth thee, and not Eliphaz, not Bildad, not so far. Yea, thy own lips testify against thee. So Job hasn't changed their mind. As your point, he's a sinner. And if you were so wise, it's just insult. Because you've hit us twice. Chapter 12 and chapter 13, you said, I've got as much wisdom as you do. Well, if you're so wise, how come you're talking so foolish? Because why? You're the one that's suffering, we're not. And you know history, that if you were wise, this is what happens. And notice Eliphaz's argument here in chapter 15, beginning with verse 7. Notice we're going to talk about wisdom and age and our forefathers. Art thou first man that was ever born? You go back that far to show you how wise you are? Or wast thou brought forth before the hills? Hast thou heard the secret counsel of God? And dost thou limit wisdom to thyself? You know, he hit a nerve when I'm just as wise as you are. But how far you go back? You go back and have all the things of God, and so he spends a lot of time of showing, just because you think you're wise, you're not speaking that way, and who are you anyway? But it says, verse 10, with us are both the gray-headed and the very aged men, much elder than your daddy, than your father. We got more wisdom over here with us than you. So that's what they're going to argue about. Who's got more, history of being older than everybody? So that's supposed to be having all the wisdom. That's not what determines wisdom. I mean, there's experience, but that's his initial point. They're not helping him one bit to tell him his sin. They don't have a sin for him. He just must be a sinner. And that's what's the frustration. David? Yeah. We got older guys than you. So let's look at an accusation they make. Question number 2 is what does he charge in verse 13? Verse 12 says, why doth thy heart carry thee away, and why do thy eyes flash like they're flashing with anger? And we see when you're hurt, you flash a lot of times. When you're despondent, you flash. And his words were that way. He says that against God thou hast turned thy spirit, and let us words go out of thy mouth. And we need to be careful about that, Job. What is man that he should be clean, and that he is born of a woman that he should be righteous? We realize we're not perfect, Job. You act like you are. But what you're doing, you're speaking words that shows that thou art turning you turned your spirit against God. And your words coming out of your mouth express that. That's why I say they're getting after him for chapter 9, 23 through 24. If you want to pick out something that indeed show that I am saying that the way God is the way God rules the world is just not righteous. You're getting real close to that. Oh, he's just perplexed that everybody's going to suffer. I'm innocent. Everybody suffers, and therefore God he takes care of both of them because he's God. And so their thing, these are words you're taking away, and that's been the strongest indictment against God that I think Job has made. And they're picking up on that and making that charge. What do you learn from Job's 3 friends in verses 9 through 10? What knowest thou that we know not? What understandest thou which not in us? With us are both the gray-headed, much elder than our father. So there's we made that point already. There's the idea of we've got more age on our side, and you think you're wiser than we are, and we get back to the point. So then we see the problem that he's setting forth. If you're going to point out a sin, that's what they've done. Any questions on that part? Question number 4. lists Eliphaz's description of the wicked man in verses 20 through 35. Because now we got age on our side. Your speech is something that's showing your heart's turning against God. You've said some things about the way he shows things. So I'm going to point out what the life of the wicked man is.
Back up to verse 19 for just a moment, please.
Yes, sir?
I'm having a little trouble with that one. It says, God puts no trust in his saints, and the heavens are not pure in his sight. That part of it, the heavens are not pure in his sight. Is he talking about, they're talking about the creation?
It's this idea when you get to the holiness of God, he'll bring them all to an end. They're not pure in his sight in a sense that they don't match up to the holy character of God. And I think that's what he is setting forth there, because they're going to go away. And he's going to be eternal, and he's perfect. And this is on both sides. They will argue that's very true. That indeed, who can come clean when we're unclean? And even the creation, it's not. When God made things, he made everything good. But sin had corrupted things, and even the creation is saying that. And when you compare it to God, just like we said Sunday, how come you being evil know how to give good gifts? Evil, and I'm giving good gifts? It's because I'm compared to God, I'm evil. Even when I'm good, in comparison to that. So I think the comparison is where that makes sense. And he's holy, and nothing else is as holy as he is. Okay. Now, in these verses, and just go through that about what happens with the wicked man. Beginning with verse 20. The wicked man, what does he do? He travaileth with pain all his days. Job, what's going on with you now? What's your days like? That's what. Not Job. We're talking about a wicked man now. I'm not talking about you. I want to talk about a wicked man, and we know that's true. Even the number of years that are laid up for the oppressor, as much time as God is going to allow him to have. And then, what is another thing? You're always wondering when they're going to catch up with you. The sound of terrors is where? In his ears. He feels like what's going to happen. In prosperity, the destroyer shall come upon him. He says, somebody's going to take this away from me. I'm a prosperous man, and he's looking at it. I think that could come any time. Verse 22, he believeth not that he shall return out of darkness, and he has waited for of the sword. There are people going to take away what he has. He fears that every day that they're about to do so, he's never going to come out of the darkness. Because why? He's going to be killed. That's what happens to wicked men. They're because of what they've done, somebody is going to be after them. And that's the way they live. He wanders about for bread, saying, where is it? He knoweth that the day of darkness is ready at his hand. It can happen anytime. Worried about protecting this. How can I avoid the sword of those who want to take away what I have? And maybe I got it in a wicked way. And of course, that's the assumption, what makes them wicked as well. Distress and anguish make him afraid. They prevail against him as a king ready to do the battle. That he's going to be a powerful king that destroy him. Verse 25, because he has stretched out his hand against God and behaveth himself proudly against the Almighty. Job, he's going to nail him. That's kind of what he's after. You speak so proudly, but your words have shown that it's against God. And this is what wicked men do. He runneth upon him with a stiff neck, and with the thick, American Standard, bosses of his bucklers, the big thick shields. And the stiff neck is the one who is a wicked man. And he goes against God, thinking he has the power, because he hath covered his face with his fatness. He's prosperous. Fatness means you're prosperous. And he gathered fat upon his loins. He's powerful and he's prosperous. He has dwelt in desolate cities. Why? Because he's lazy. And cities are desolate, and it won't be long that their food will run out, and he ain't working any, because everybody's serving him. And his houses which no man inhabited, which are ready to become heaps, are going to be destroyed. And he doesn't have the sense. He's just living this life where he has everything going his way. And that's the way the wicked are. And then God brings them down. He shall not be rich, neither shall his substance continue. If he got riches, he's very going to lose them, and they're not going to continue, because they won't happen with wicked men, Job. This is the history of wicked men. Neither shall their possessions be extended to the earth. He shall not depart out of darkness. He's worried about going into darkness. He's not coming out of there alive. The flame shall dry up his branches, and by the breath of God's mouth shall he go away. Let him not trust in vanity, deceiving himself, for vanity shall be his recompense. It shall be accomplished before his time. God's justice comes upon them when they're not expecting it and before their time. And it shall be accomplished before his time, and his branch shall not be green. He shall shake off of his unripe grape of the vine, and thou shalt cast off his flower as an olive tree. For the company of the godless shall be barren, and fire shall consume the tents of bribery. He got his tents of luxury by bribery. They conceive mischief and bring forth iniquity, and their heart prepareth deceit. That's how wicked people think. Job. That's what happens to wicked people that speak against the Almighty. And Job, my friend, I think that's what you're doing. Because you seemed to have trouble in the flesh, and this is what happens to wicked people. Job answers, doesn't he? Job has a reply. And what is his blunt reply in these first 5 verses of chapter 16? You're miserable comforters. Thanks a lot. I've heard this tirade that you don't think I'm as wise as you. I still think I am, but you think you have wisdom on your side, and here's all this wisdom. You haven't touched me. But you're miserable comforters. Would he do that? Would Job do that to them? No, he wouldn't. But I would strengthen you with my mouth, and the solace of my lips would I assuage your grief. I would relieve you of your grief. That's what friends do. But you've just indicted me as being this, tents of bribery, that kind of sinner. I also could speak as you do. If your soul were in my soul said I could join words against you and shake my head at you. It's because of your guilt. So he has a strong reply back. But nobody's gained any ground. God's still silent. Job hadn't got it. He hasn't understood it all. And his friends are on the wrong track. But that's the way it's been on earth. And I can feel for both of them. And understand kind of where they're coming from. I know our time is short, but let's just start here. We'll pick up the rest of it. In chapter 16 and 17, so after chapter 16 and verse 5, let's notice some things about how he speaks about his agony. When you talk about his agony, how do you what comes out of these chapters? Let's talk about his agony, okay? We've talked about his despondency. And let's continue in that line. And I got 5 different things of agony. Number 1 is he's like I've been torn apart by a beast. That's the way I feel. Verse 6 says, though I speak, my grief is not assuaged, and though I forbear, what am I? I'm not eased. But now he hath made me weary. Notice, he hath made me weary. Thou hast made desolate all my company. He's speaking now in his relationship with God. Now, he'll talk about those people, his supposedly friends, but he makes these statements about God. And thou hast laid fast hold on me, which is a witness against me, and my leanness riseth up against me. But here I am in that terrible condition, and it's as if you are indicted me. It testified to my face. He hath torn me in his wrath and persecuted me. God's done that. God's persecuted me, and I'm like a bee. He gnashed upon me with his teeth. Mine adversary sharpeneth his eyes upon me. He said, well, that's his friends. Well, there's three of them. And it very well, let's say, no, he's not eliminating his friends, but who would be the source of all that? Who is allowing that to happen? God. That bothers him. They have gaped upon me with their mouth. Well, he's talking about he is, God. The people that supposedly on your side, God, they gaped upon me with their mouth. I feel like I've been torn apart by a beast. And they have smitten me upon the cheek reproachfully and gathered themselves together against me. And that's the first one. And in this 16th chapter, you find four more. And let's put them together, and Lord willing, next time we'll put those together. But right now, he's just torn apart as a beast. And God's involved with this, and the people that God is not changing their minds, and they're attributing to it as well. So he feels that agony. So any questions you want or comments you make before we close? Okay, thank you.